Hello everybody, today we are going to see the third cranial nerve, that is oculomotor nerve. We will study each cranial nerve under the same headings, that is the introduction, functional components, nuclei of origin, the course intracranial and extracranial, the termination, innervation and applied anatomy. So what is the introduction? It is the third cranial nerve and carries purely motor fibers. It has about 24,000 fibers or axons in it. What are the functional components of oculomotor nerve? It is mainly the motor, so it has somatic efferent fibers. They arise from the main nucleus and supply all the extraocular muscles except lateral rectus and superior oblique, which can be remembered as LR6SO4. It also has the general visceral efferent fibers, which are nothing but preganglionic parasympathetic fibers arising from Edinger-Westphal nucleus, which is dorsal to the main nucleus of oculomotor nerve. It carries the general somatic afferent fibers, which are the proprioceptive fibers, but these fibers are handed over to the trigeminal nerve and ultimately reach the mesencephalic nucleus. What is the nuclei of origin of the third nerve? So the nucleus is present in the midbrain at the level of superior colliculus. So if we see the transverse section of midbrain, the dorsal aspect shows the tectum. So in the tectum, these will be the superior collicula, and towards the ventral aspect there is the crus cerebri. It is divided into behind is the tegmentum and anterior is the crus cerebri, and in between is the substantia nigra. Now at the level of superior colliculus, this is the aqueduct and this portion is the periaqueductal gray matter. Now the oculomotor nucleus is present in this periaqueductal gray matter, I am showing it with green color, and dorsal to it there is a small nucleus that is called the Edinger-Westphal nucleus, plus there is mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve in this gray matter. Now the oculomotor nuclear complex is divided into different parts. So one is dorsolateral part, which supplies inferior rectus, the intermediate part which supplies inferior oblique, ventromedial part which supplies the medial rectus, the caudal center part which supplies the levator palpebris superioris, and the median raphe nucleus which is for the superior rectus. Now the nerve arises from this oculomotor complex. It passes through the tegmentum part. Now if you see anterior to this periaqueductal gray matter, at this level the midbrain shows the red nucleus on either side. So the oculomotor nerve traverses through the tegmentum, through the red nucleus, piercing the substantia nigra, and it comes out in the interpeduncular fossa medial to the cerebral peduncles. The connections of the third nerve. The oculomotor nerve is connected with the cerebral cortex through corticonuclear fibers. It is connected with the medial longitudinal fasciculus, which in turn connects the third nerve with the other nerves, that is the fourth, sixth and the eighth nerve, and these are responsible for the coordinated or conjugate movements of the eyeball. It is connected with the superior colliculus. We know that in the tectum there is superior and inferior collicula, of which superior colliculus is concerned with the vision. So third nerve is related or connected with the superior colliculus. It is also connected with the pretectal nuclei of both sides for direct and consensual light reflex. Now, what is the origin of the oculomotor nerve? As we said, it arises from the midbrain nucleus. It passes through the tegmentum, the red nucleus, the substantia nigra, and emerges on the medial side of cerebral peduncles. So, here is the position of the midbrain like this, and the oculomotor nerve is arising on the ventral side from here. Then in the intracranial course, it passes forwards in the interpeduncular between the two peduncles, cistern. Here there is a basilar artery which is lying on this portion that is called the clevus. So this basilar artery, it ends in posterior cerebral, and before that is the superior cerebellar branch. So the oculomotor nerve, it traverses between these two arteries. Then it reaches here near the posterior clinoid process, where there is the attachment of the free margin. So this is tentorium cerebelli, which is having a free margin and attached margin. So where these two margins cross, this portion is called the oculomotor trigone. So the oculomotor nerve traverses from on this oculomotor trigone, and then it lies in the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus. So this is the position of the pituitary gland. On either side is the cavernous sinus here, and in its lateral wall this oculomotor nerve will traverse anteriorly. Now it will reach the superior orbital fissure. So this is showing the oculomotor nerve in the lateral wall of cavernous sinus. Here it is related below to the trochlear nerve and the ophthalmic and maxillary divisions of the trigeminal nerve. It exits through the superior orbital fissure by passing through the tendinous ring of Zinn. So now it has come extracranially, that is through the superior orbital fissure tendinous ring. It enters into the orbit. Immediately it divides into a upper and lower divisions. Between these two divisions lies the nasociliary nerve. So if we draw the superior orbital fissure, retort shaped, in the center there is a tendinous ring of Zinn, and inside this there is upper division and a lower division of the oculomotor. Between the two lies the nasociliary nerve. When it comes into the eyeball, it divides, supplies different muscles. So the superior or the upper division, it goes above the optic nerve and divides into two branches, one for superior rectus and the other for the levator palpebrae superioris. The inferior division is larger. It goes below the optic nerve and it divides into three branches. The medial one. So if we draw this as the orbit, and this is the optic nerve in the center, which is large and thick. The superior division will go above and divide into two. The inferior division will go below the optic nerve. It will divide into one medial branch. This is medial side, lateral side. One central branch and one lateral branch. The medial branch will supply the medial rectus muscle. The central branch will dip down, go downwards and supply the inferior rectus, whereas the lateral branch will go and supply the inferior oblique muscle from its orbital side, and it will give one branch which will go to the ciliary ganglion. All the muscles are supplied from the ocular surface except the inferior oblique, which is supplied from the orbital surface. Ocular surface is from within the eye. Orbital surface is from the outside, from the bony side of the eye. Hence it is called orbital surface. What are the communications of the third nerve? In the cavernous sinus, there is internal carotid artery with the sympathetic plexus around it. So this third nerve communicates with this plexus, and the sympathetic fibers go to supply dilator pupillae muscle and the smooth or the sympathetic part of levator palpebrae superioris, which is called the Mueller's muscle. In the cranial cavity, it is communicating with the trigeminal nerve, so that the proprioceptive fibers are handed over to the fifth nerve, that is the ophthalmic branch. In the orbit, it communicates with the ciliary ganglion through the nerve to inferior oblique, which gives preganglionic parasympathetic fibers which are coming from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. They relay on the ciliary ganglion, and through the short ciliary nerves they supply the sphincter pupillae. Now these fibers are for the light reflex. So if you see a doctor examining a patient's eye, he will throw light with a torch into the eye of the patient. So whenever there is light is shown in the eye, the pupils will constrict. This is a protective reflex, and not only on the same side but also on the in the opposite eye there is pupillary constriction, and this is called direct, that is the same eye, and consensual, that is the opposite eye, constriction of the opposite eye, and this is mediated through the sphincter pupillae muscle. Then these fibers are also supplying the ciliaris muscle. Now when ciliaris muscle contracts, the lens becomes more convex, and this is important for the accommodation reflex. Accommodation is important to see near objects or while reading, while focusing for nearby objects. So these two are the functions of the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers coming from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus relaying in the ciliary ganglion. So functions of the third nerve: it allows movements of the eyeball. Now what are these movements? These are the by the muscles which are supplied by the third nerve. So lifting of the upper eyelid by the superior rectus muscle, mainly turning the eye upward, then turning the eye downward by inferior rectus, or medially by medial rectus. So these are all different movements by the extraocular muscles. Accommodation reflex, which is brought about by the contraction of ciliaris, constriction of the pupils for direct and consensual light reflex by the sphincter pupillae muscle, and some sympathetic fibers which are coming via the oculomotor nerve, which are taken from the sympathetic plexus around the internal carotid artery. These sympathetic fibers, they pass through the ciliary ganglion without relay, and they are supplied to the dilator pupillae for dilation of the pupils, and to the Mueller's muscle, a part of levator palpebrae superioris, which helps in elevation of upper eyelid. Coming to the applied part, if there is palsy of the oculomotor nerve on the same side, there is drooping of the upper eyelid because the levator palpebrae is paralyzed, and orbicularis oculi is normal, and action of orbicularis oculi is to close the eye. So that muscle is acting and the opposite muscle is not acting, that's why there is drooping. The eyes are directed downwards and laterally because of the action of two muscles which are not paralyzed by the oculomotor. These are lateral rectus supplied by abducent and superior oblique supplied by the trochlear nerve. There is external or lateral squint because the medial rectus is paralyzed, whereas the lateral rectus is normal. so the eye is pulled to the lateral side. The pupils become dilated and fixed because the sphincter pupillae is not acting. There is loss of accommodation and there is diplopia when looking to the paralyzed side. Now, oculomotor nerve can also be damaged in midbrain lesions, which is called as Weber syndrome. Now, when there is damage to this nerve, there will be same-sided oculomotor nerve paralysis like picture, but there will be contralateral hemiplegia. Why contralateral? Because in the midbrain, the corticospinal fibers which are coming from the cerebral cortex have not yet crossed. They will cross in the medulla. Hence, these are going to control the opposite half of the body. When these fibers are damaged, there will be contralateral hemiplegia. The compression of oculomotor nerve can occur due to hematoma or it is passing through two arteries. So, any small aneurysm of any of the artery will cause compression. And a typical feature is that the autonomic or the parasympathetic fibers are affected first. So, the first sign in oculomotor palsy is that the pupils are slowly responding to the light reflex. So, if you show a light into the eye, the pupils will respond slowly if there is damage to the oculomotor nerve. Sometimes, if the sympathetic fibers are affected, it will lead to ptosis. So, to revise the course of the oculomotor nerve, we will make the midbrain over here. It is showing the tectum part posteriorly, and it is showing the cerebral crus cerebri. This is the substantia nigra. These are the red nuclei on either side. This is the aqueduct with the periaqueductal gray matter, and this is the oculomotor nuclear complex. The nerve arises from here, passes through the tegmentum, through the red nucleus and substantia nigra, and emerges on the medial side of the cerebral peduncles. In the interpeduncular cistern, the nerve passes between two arteries, posterior cerebral and superior cerebellar. Then it will emerge and it will pass. So, here there is the dorsum celli and there is a oculomotor trigone. So, it will pass through the oculomotor trigone. Here it will pierce the dura, and on either side of this is sella turcica. On either side of this there is a cavernous sinus. So, the oculomotor nerve will pass in the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus. It will exit from the superior orbital fissure by dividing into two divisions. So, in the superior orbital fissure itself, there are two divisions between which lies the nasociliary nerve. Now, as the two divisions come in the orbit, the upper division will go above the optic nerve and it will divide into two branches supplying superior rectus and the levator palpebrae superioris. The lower division will go below the optic nerve. It will divide into three branches: medial, central and lateral. The medial branch will supply the medial rectus. The central branch will supply inferior rectus. The lateral branch will supply the inferior oblique from its orbital surface, and it will give a small branch to the ciliary ganglion. So, oculomotor nerve, third cranial nerve, it is a purely motor nerve having somatic efferent and general visceral efferent fibers. The general somatic efferent will go via fifth nerve. The course, that is from the nuclei of origin. In the nuclei there is a oculomotor nuclear complex plus there is Edinger-Westphal nucleus. It is lying at the level of the midbrain at the level of superior colliculus. The intracranial course and the extracranial course. It exits through the superior orbital fissure and then it supplies the extraocular muscles by dividing into upper division, which supplies superior rectus and levator palpebrae superioris, lower division which supplies medial rectus, inferior rectus and inferior oblique. The function is motor to all these muscles and it helps in light reflex by supplying the sphincter pupillae and the accommodation reflex by supplying the ciliaris muscle. So this is in short about the oculomotor nerve. So this is about the third nerve.